Now, as chair of the EU, Ireland watched with trepidation as David Cameron spelled out his plans for a referendum. I sat down with Ireland's Prime Minister Enda Kenny and asked him what a UK-EU exit would mean for the Irish economy.
Wouldn't be bad for Ireland, it would be bad for Europe as well. We're our closest neighbour is Britain. We have our largest import-export business with Britain. We have very strong links, including signing a strategic partnership agreement last year, a free movement of people between our two countries for years. So it's not just about Ireland, it's about Europe. Britain's been a driver of the single market. In my view, Britain should continue to be central to the European Union of the future. And I do believe that the agenda that's now been set for this presidency, if we can get cooperation and assistance from our European colleagues, can actually deal with elements of what the Prime Minister was talking about. The single market, the digital market, e-signature, the opening of trade between Europe and the US, and the conclusion of trade agreements with Canada and so on.
It's a cheeky question, but you'll still be Taoiseach when this referendum happens?
Well, who knows what the future holds for anybody. Politicians who predict the future sometimes are right and sometimes they're wrong. Following
a bumper period for Spanish, Portuguese bond auctions, do you think we've turned the corner?
Well, we've stabilised our economy at home. There's a relative period of calm in Europe, so there's no room for complacency here. In fact, my view is that Europe should now drive on during this period of calmness, if you like, when you don't have any talk of breakup of the euro or countries exiting the euro, and move on to implement the agenda that will mean an injection of confidence into the economies of Europe and the potential for increased trade and therefore job opportunities. Because, as I've often said, politics is essentially about people and their lives, and we've got 26 million unemployed in the European Union.
You're back in the bond market. When will you be selling again on a regular basis?
Well, we would hope to end the bank guarantee that's been in place for a number of years inside the next month or two. We want to see our banks back on the markets themselves, able to borrow money, therefore being free of state guarantee, therefore having greater flexibility in the credit that they can lend to small and medium enterprises, which are a focus of our government. I'd like to see Ireland moving towards 10-year monies, and obviously being able to exit our programme this year and borrow on the markets as would be traditional.
What do you read as full market access?
Well, normally they say if you have 2 9-year sales in a row that are successful and beneficial. So we would hope that having achieved the degree of stability we have at home and growth and confidence coming back into our economy, that our European colleagues will now deliver on the support that they have committed to.
Here in Davos, post the Cameron speech, European leaders, whether it's French, German or Belgium, have been using pretty tough language to describe what they think of the Cameron plan. Ignorant, dangerous. It doesn't smack of cooperation. It doesn't smack of a harmonious relationship going forward.
Well, it's also legitimate to have an argument if you wish to have an argument. But our view is that the European Union will be much stronger with Britain as a central part of that. I noticed that the Prime Minister's comments were focused on what Europe can be for the future. So clearly our view and our priority is to continue the stability of Europe that's been achieved, to build on the sense of calmness that's now here, to prove that political decisions can actually be implemented and work. And the important thing for this presidency is to have the strategy and the plan in place, explain to the people what you're doing, why you're doing it, why tough decisions have to be made, and move through to show that the results are in everybody's interests. That's where we need to be. The challenge and the remit of leadership given by the people in politics doesn't come around very often, and when it does, there's not a moment to be wasted.
Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them, wrote William Shakespeare. We asked Davos delegates if they think leaders are born or made.
Leaders are like diamonds. You need the rock, but then you have to work in it.
I think to say that it's one or the other is really a little bit naive.
Leaders may have intuitive leadership skills, but for the most part, they're made not just by events, but how they respond to difficult events.
We have this tendency to...
And Reuters' Chrystia Freeland speaks to the Canadian Finance Minister. That is later on in the show. Now, as chair of the EU, Ireland watched with trepidation as David Cameron spelled out his plans for a referendum. I sat down with Ireland's Prime Minister Enda Kenny and asked him what a UK-EU exit would mean for the Irish economy.
Wouldn't be bad for Ireland, it would be bad for Europe as well. We're our closest neighbour is Britain. We have our largest import-export